All right, guys, we are live with another episode of the Blue Crocus Experience. I'm your host, Louis Vandervalk, and I'm joined today by Nik Biddinger, who has actually been working with Mike Claudio of WinRate Consulting. So we'll probably chat a little bit about that. But Nik has a background in the asphalt industry and has learned a lot through that, learned a lot through working with different companies. And so we're just kind of going to chat a little bit about that. But Nik, if you want to introduce yourself, tell
Yeah,
people where you're at, what's going on
yeah,
with you.
yeah. Thanks for having me, man. My name's Nik Biddinger, and I started out working for my father's asphalt maintenance company, which started back in '89, and I started, I think, in '99. So I started as a little primer boy out in the parking lots back when primer was used for oil spots, and grew all the way up to an ownership role. That transition wasn't as expected, which I'll get into that in a minute. But I worked my way up. I was a crew leader, estimator, so I got all the experience I needed to, which was great when I did make that pivot. So yeah, we let's see. My dad, he came down with Parkinson's disease about 12 years ago, and about 6 years ago, he was unable to run the company efficiently anymore.
Right.
So at that point, it was my duty to kind of step in and fill his shoes, which I did. And then I also have an older brother who stepped in as well, who was part of the business, a little bit before me, but he just skimmed the surface. He hadn't had much experience, but he knew a little bit more about business than I did. So he was definitely a good addition. We were kind of yin and yang, if you will. We always said my strengths are your weaknesses and vice versa. So it was a great team. We started kind of taking over about 6 years ago, and just to kind of be transparent, Dad had made some poor, financial decisions in the past, and that caused us a little bit of pain and suffering, within the company, and it made it hard for us to grow. So there wasn't much capital there, to really grow and expand. So we were kind of stuck. Our equipment was aging, and so on and so forth. So we kind of had our heads just above water for a few years, right? And we're just, barely getting by, especially, I'm up in Traverse City, Michigan. So we do see a significant amount of snow. So, we did snowplow in the winter. We had to. So with that, some winters that there's like that sweet spot, right? Like if it snows like a ton, you're paying a ton out in payroll. And if it doesn't snow at all, you're not making any money. So the winters were always really stressful,
Because would you guys do snow plowing in the winter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll never miss those days, man. That was a time of year that I always just never was looking forward to. I would become so stressed in the winter because it's like, are we going to make it through, and because we literally just scraped by, every winter. Dad didn't really, he was great in his industry. He had built a lot of relationships and was just very well at that. He was a people person. People loved him, and he grew his business based off relationships, but he did not really, he didn't really know how to run a business. So
the money side and management and all that.
Correct. Yeah. And that, honestly, I kind of inherited his way of running his business as well, or running a business as well, because that's all I had to learn from, So that kind of stalled me a little bit on some of my, decisions that I made, and what was right and what was wrong. And it just took me a little bit longer and make a few mistakes and fall on my face a couple of times to really learn the right way of how to do some things. So it just was like, going into winter was always stressful because we never really planned for that and put money away or, things like that. So fast forwarding until, this past year, we were approached by a a bigger, very reputable company in our hometown who is actually an excavating company, but they started an asphalt sector of their business, and we're just kind of in the building phase of that. And we were approached because we, in our area, we definitely had the area locked down. Within like a 100-mile radius, we were the guys to call as far as asphalt maintenance goes. And we also had a sweeping division too. We had some big and little sweepers that would go, and we do spring and fall cleanups for big stores, or we do mill and fills, stuff like that for county work too with that. But
would you do the streets at all on the sweeping side?
Yep. We do the streets, and then we'd have our nightly sweeps, we call them, which like are the Walmarts and the Home Depots, the box stores, right? This is just the maintenance cleanup part. But so that was a separate side of our business, which added to the value. But we were approached because we had so many clients, we had so many customers, very trusted customers who trusted us and who had, gone to the other side and come back, because we weren't the cheapest in town. So we had built that over a long time, and that's something that Dad did. So we were approached by this other company in town, and it kind of happened simultaneously of us kind of needing to figure something out, right? Because this kind of crush we had, or this thumb we had over us, it was kind of coming to an end here because especially with COVID, stuff like that. It was nearing the point of where we needed to figure something out, the next step. So it kind of all happened simultaneously, and I got offered a position over at this new company who we joined forces with, and I worked for them from about April till last Friday. So last Friday I got let go, laid off, and they actually was kind of cool because they offered me, I could come back next year, or I could take a severance and just kind of walk away from it. And so I opted the severance route because, as you mentioned, I'm with Claudio with WinRate Consulting. I've the last 7 months that I've been with him, I've truly found my passion. I've always kind of really enjoyed helping people, bettering people's lives with anything. I mean, advice or business advice or wherever I can help. I love to just kind of plug those little, things in there to help people. So now I can be part of someone's success story, in their business. That's an added bonus. And truly, like I said, I truly found my passion, and I'm kind of excited about it. So I'm at a pivot point in my life, and I'm excited to pursue my passion with Mike and coaching. So
awesome. Yeah. Can you maybe touch a bit on, use this as a bit of a platform for what you guys are doing, what you are doing with Mike, what Mike's doing, what WinRate is all about. And then let's pivot back to some of the falling on your face stuff that you mentioned there before we can dive into those, and hopefully people can come away with some tidbits too.
Yeah. So you just want me to explain about WinRate?
Yeah, tell the listeners kind of what you guys are about, who you help, because it's not one industry from what I've seen. Correct.
Yeah. I mean, we help businesses in the home service and construction industry, but honestly, if we find that all those businesses have the same issues. There's a huge need for leadership, business development, sales. Just having processes in those areas and efficiencies, and there's other areas too, helping with social media, and not so much managing social media, but like giving out how to do it, how to utilize it, how to grow a brand, having a consistent message that represents your business, and so on and so forth. So we find that there's a huge need for all those things in those industries. But, Mike, being who he is, I mean, he's got a, huge heart as well, and enjoys what he does. And I mean, he's helped a dog training business, right? He's helped, a guy who sells insurance. So if the mold, if what you're going through, if it fits the mold, we can help really anybody. So, he's very honest. You know, Mike's, you know, very honest. I mean, we just had a call yesterday with a local, you know, excavating company in town, here where I live. And at the end of it, it's like, I can't help you. You know, he just wasn't this individual wasn't really at a point where he could get help. He was kind of deciding, you know, is he going to go this way or this way with his business? So,
Right.
yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell. I mean, that's kind of what we do there. And
Because what I've seen in following your and Mike's journey, and if you guys haven't checked out Big Stud Sales, I learned stuff listening to it. Like it's him and Mike and Ryan Weber. They hop on and they chat. Very very bite-sized chunks.
Yep.
Very actionable tips, things, you know, everything to do with business, whether it be marketing to referrals to you name it, right? But yeah, there's a ton of value if you can at least follow what Mike and Nick and Ryan and everyone with the WinRate team is doing. Highly recommend it. I think you'd come away, you know, with some tips and some actionable things to do.
Yeah, Mike, and I will add to that, Mike gives away a ton of free content and spends a ton of time making content, and it's very valuable. So there's the Big Stud Sales podcast. He's got his Mike Claudio YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's really good too.
There's the Construction Selling Facebook group, which is a free Facebook group that, you know, again, just kind of little gold nuggets and little droplets of information that he gives out. So definitely check those out. Yep,
yeah. No, it's you know, I've been following along since. I mean, I think you were actually the one that connected me to Mike originally. Now we're having you on the podcast. But that's been a couple months now, I think.
Yeah.
Like there's always something good. I always make a point to catch up on the podcast and the YouTube channel. So I know this is about you and your journey, so we won't be
that's fine.
long on there. But I know it's
that's part of my journey.
It is, and it's part of what you're about and what you're doing too. So if you guys want to know more, reach out to Nick. I'll put links to the group and the podcast and stuff down below too, so that they can follow. But you have a podcast too.
I do have a podcast. It's a lot different.
I haven't actually. I'll be honest. I haven't checked it out. I've seen some snippets, but you feel free to plug it here. It's called Honestish with a side of hot sauce. Which I need to know why it's called that. I know you probably explained it on the podcast, but just tell us quickly.
So yeah, I'll be totally transparent with you. So Honest-ish came from, you know, I think there's parts in our life where we're honest and then we're honest-ish, right? Like we're honest until it's convenient for us or the other person, or Jeff Straight, my co-host, and we kind of dive into personal life experiences. You know, we give like, you know, sometimes 98% of the story, you know, there's that 2% that's the ish that's going to stay out. But no, that's kind of where Honest-ish came from. And then with a side of hot sauce, honestly, man, Jeff and I are kind of weirdos at heart. And we came up with Honest-ish. I'm like, man, it needs something, you know, and
needs a side of something.
And I'm like, I love hot sauce. I'm a huge lover of hot sauce. So I'm like, let's plug that in there. And I'm like, you know what? That kind of goes, like, it kind of adds to our personalities a little bit, right? Like we're these honest, you know, honest-ish individuals with a side of spicy, you know what I mean? So Jeff has he doesn't hold anything back. He will be first to tell you that he's a Jew, and he is very opinionated, and the guy is very smart and intelligent, and you can tell that by just listening to him and hearing his stories. But no, it's a great pairing. And I was on Mike's Big Stud Sales podcast when I went down to North Carolina to meet Mike, and I loved it, man. And I just was like, man, I want to figure out how to do this, you know. But I haven't been through as much experience and education as Mike has with the whole, you know. And then I you know, we might pivot the podcast. Right now it's just been kind of like comedy / life experience, you know, maybe with some value. But it's definitely different than Big Stud Sales. So
no, I wanted to plug that because I've been seeing you post about that, and maybe I should have gotten in there to get some little nuggets so you could bring out the other 2%. But I'll definitely have to check it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been fun.
That's
So
good, man. That's good. Well, I always like to humanize the people that I'm chatting with as well. So it's not just like, all right, let's chat about business only, right? Like we
yeah. Yeah.
all have our little side things too. So
It's definitely entertaining. So check it out. Yep. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple, the Apple podcast. So, yep. And we got an IG page, honest underscore ish or honestish underscore podcast is our IG handle. So
love
we're,
it.
making content and stuff like that. So
Love it. Yeah. Shoot me the links for that as well. And I'll post them
yeah,
down below too. So
for sure.
cool, man. Well, now that we've kind of seen the hot sauce side of you a little bit, maybe dive into those face plants that you were chatting about, because ultimately we want people to come away with some things, hopefully one or two things that they can do differently as they go through stuff. And I'm honestly, as a business owner, going through growing pains as we scale. So I'm always excited to hear from people in different industries. I like to say, and I heard this from someone, like we're all selling a widget, right? And so the business is business. And I mean, you just said that with what Mike's doing too. It's like he can, if a person is in the right place, he'll come alongside and help them, because we're all ultimately struggling with the same things.
Mm-hmm.
So talk a bit about, maybe pick the most gnarly one or get a little honestish on it, but talk about a couple things that, you could look back on and be like, man, if I were to do that again, this is how I would do it. But give us something exciting here.
I mean, there's a ton, man. There's so much, and I'll just start going down the list. But I think the biggest struggle and downfall that I had in an ownership role was, we kind of inherited the business, right? So with that, like I kind of brushed on earlier, I kind of inherited the way that my dad did things, and there wasn't a lot of, I mean, and I don't want to dog on him. I mean, he did a very good job. But there was a lot that, knowing what I know now, I would have changed. So in that time period that I was in that role, I think not being open to new ideas, changes, and really, educating myself on what I can do better. I really like, and being outside of it now, looking in, I know exactly what happened. I mean, I became just comfortable and I became, like just in stagnant water, complacent's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And complacency is, it's a dangerous place because, I inherited that I made it mentality. I made a good living. I was running the family business, and I just didn't really do anything to improve myself. As I was, as I was going through that journey, or improve the business really. I mean, it just was kind of like, I kind of fell into the entrepreneurship, like, all right, like I can put in less hours and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
which is the totally wrong.
Now and I'm rolling and yeah.
Yeah. It's the wrong mentality to have. I mean, it should have been the very opposite. And two, I don't think that, I don't think that business was my passion at all. Mm-hmm. So, I would say to some of the listeners out there, like, if you don't love what you're doing and it's just there because you're making a living at it, like you need to change that, because you're just, putting time, all we have is time in this world, right? You're just wasting time in doing what you're meant to do. And I'll tell you, being in the position that I am now, finding what I truly am and was put on this earth to do, knowing that wholeheartedly, that is such an incredible feeling. And I used to think, people that said, find what you love to do and you'll never work another day in your life, I always thought that was BS. I'm like, that doesn't, no.
Like, that's just wishful thinking at that point, right?
But that is 100% true. I mean, I know now, like, on the coaching side of things, when I am working on that, I mean, I love it, man. I love talking to people. I love, building relationships and just getting in front of people, because I'm good at that. Right. Like, and so, I would definitely stress to people, if you're just in the daily grind and you're just getting by and you started this business and it's like, you don't really love what you're doing, then it's time to pivot, and so, a coach can help you do that for sure. So, yeah. It definitely helps having an outside perspective when you're in that transition point, right? Like when you kind of feel stuck, when you kind of feel like, oh man, I just, Mike has helped a lot of people pivot. So that's a great utilization for an outside perspective, someone that's helped other people do that. So that's another thing I would say. And, the other thing is our culture really was not great. And I kind of brushed on that earlier when you and I were talking, and, just having that scarcity mindset of like, maybe this, like some of those employees that I, had, when I took over, I'd grown up with, and they'd seen me grow up, right? Some of them were older than me and been there longer, but, and some of those employees were really hard workers, but they were kind of I would say, some of what affected the culture of the business. I don't really want to say bad apples, but it's just our culture wasn't really where it should have been, So I think.
Can you speak to any specifics in that? Because culture is something that I see a lot of people, like when you put out the call, like what's the biggest thing you struggle with in your business? And often it's employees. Like that's the number one thing that I see.
Yeah.
But then I also, I've started to get to know people a little bit. And I'm not calling out everybody that answers employees, but I'm saying, maybe you can dive into what the specific culture things were. Cause I've seen some people who I wouldn't want to work with, and they're the ones complaining about employees and not finding good employees. Because I've also talked to people who, it's challenging to find people that put in good work, but if you treat the employees well, the Callaways, Keith Callaway, Jr. and Senior, in Portland, Oregon, they have an incredible company culture in their paving company.
Yeah.
And they've worked really hard to make that a thing. And so that's where I'm hoping you can get a little bit granular, to use Mike's favorite word there.
Yeah. Granular and articulate.
Yeah.
I'll try and articulate it the best I can. No. So, I mean, examples of that are just, guys with bad attitudes, guys that don't have any respect for other people because, maybe these other people don't work. And, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I think it was a mixture of both. I think it was the wrong people, in our business. And I think that some of it was probably mine and my brother's responsibility to work with these people and really like sit side by side with them and maybe ask them, their feelings on stuff or try and get to the root of the problem of what's making them act that way or be the way that they're being, right? So one thing I've learned with my time with Mike is that the key, going out and finding the perfect employee, never going to happen. So the longer time you just siphon through employees and are like, no, he doesn't fit, after a couple months, no, he doesn't fit. No, he doesn't fit. You're kind of just going to be spinning your wheels and you're kind of delaying time.
And if you employees are going to talk to other people that are going to eventually not work out for you too, right?
Exactly. So really what I've learned over this time is that it's about like morphing, this person into the right employee. Like, what does your key employee look like? You got to figure that out as a business owner. What type of person do you want in your business? And then you need to train those people to be that person, because people are trainable. And if you set forth, the right vibes and the right, culture yourself, where you want to, you I always say you want to be someone that people would sit down and have a beer with. That's important too. That makes people want to be around you. And then that allows people or that allows you to be able to like really, help these people and have them be receptive of that help.
Help them to be vulnerable with the things that maybe they hate about their position or hate about the way things are done and stuff, right?
100%. If you're this loud, screaming at people, and they're going to be closed off and you're not going to find anything out about them, So you really, being a leader, it's all about communication. It's a huge key of it. So you've got to really, that's one thing I learned along the way, because in a lot of the paving and asphalt industry guys will know, like, there's a lot of different individuals that work, in this industry, a lot of different personalities, I should say, so you really, you can't talk to you the same I talked to Tommy over there. You know, I mean, you've got to be transparent, and you've got to, just make that transition. So.
And speak to Tommy where he is and speak to me where I am, right?
Exactly. You guys are both in two separate places. So
I love the part about everyone being trainable too, because I know in jobs that I've worked before and people that I've worked for, they just expect you to know everything, right? And then when you screw up, it's like, oh, come on, like you're not good for the position. But then I've seen that happen to other people too, and I know that the people that I've seen it happen to, they're really smart people. They just weren't given a path forward. There's no clear direction. And I've heard my coaches and mentors and stuff, and I know Mike talks about this on Big Stud Sales. It's like, if you don't have a process in place, then your high achievers probably won't want to work with you, because they want to work under a process, right? You want to say something? Go ahead.
I lost a couple people because of that.
Yeah.
And I just chalked it up to, well, who wants to be in an asphalt maintenance business for the rest of their life?
Right.
So, but really, if I had done the work and set the right tone and provided the right environment, that could have been a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've probably seen, I've recently brought someone on who's going to kind of be working alongside me here locally, Ryan, and it was weird when I first started thinking about bringing someone on, because first of all, I didn't have any processes in place. Everything was in my head. And that's just, that's the way I operated, right? I took a lot of action. I did a lot of, found a lot of things that didn't work, a lot of things that did work, but I didn't necessarily write everything down. So it was kind of intimidating for me looking at it from that perspective. But then I was like, man, like I wish I knew someone that just had all the knowledge I had. And I had to really go back and look and say, I didn't have all this knowledge at one point. I had to learn it all. Someone taught me all of this.
Yep.
And so it's been incredible to see him come on board and just soak up the info and soak up and be so teachable, because he had zero knowledge in what we were doing before this, similar to me when I started out, right? It's like,
yeah,
he's soaking it up, but I've really tried to make it, my favorite thing to say is there's no dumb questions. Ask the question. I'll tell you if I've answered it 50 times already, but for the most part, people don't ask the same questions. But
yeah,
to see him just come on board, and like now we're at the point where he's really starting to come in and take a load off my shoulders, and allow me to continue to kind of take the company where we want it to go, take the business in a way that serves the most people. But I had to like kind of step back and be humble and say, look, there's a lot of things I need to do to make this easier for people coming on. So Ryan, like if you're willing to jump in while it's still a little bit messy and help me sort this out, good on you, man. Like we're going to go places, but I know that it would have been even better if I'd had processes in place. And so as we grow further, it's like, we're really trying to nail that down.
Yep. That's cool.
What, from a business side, like, I mean, that is what you were talking about as a business side, obviously, but like from a management side, other than like personnel, employees and stuff, what's kind of something that jumps into your head there that you could have done differently?
Well, and this is going to seem like a plug, but honestly, man, to be totally transparent, if we would have had a coach, literally, I mean, and this just applies to what was going on in our business, because we needed coaching on so many different areas, and to have the right processes in place, like you're saying. And if we would have had a coach, whether it be a Mike or someone else, I mean, we definitely would still be in business, and I think there's a sweet spot, where it might have been, too far gone.
Yeah.
But if we would have been smart enough and researched and, just done our due diligence in trying to find the cure for the problem, we would have found that, coaching was something that, would have helped us. But at the same time, I feel like having a coach is kind of something new, I mean, not in the last year or two, but like, maybe in the last 5 to 10 years, like it's kind of And now in the past, I would say 5 years, it's just starting to become more, people are starting to see more popular, see the value, and people are, because you got to be open to it, and also it's getting out the right message about what it is. Like a lot of people are like, either they're not open because, their ego is too big and they're like, no, I can do this myself. Right. It's like it's like us as men, we never read directions when we're putting something together. Right. Like, why would we read something that tells us what to do? We know how to do it.
Exactly. And if we really get in a pinch, then we'll go back.
Exactly. But if you would have read the directions, you would have been done way faster. You know what I mean? You would have gotten to your end goal way faster. So, yeah. So I think that that would have helped us quite a bit in that area. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that too. I mean, I know you're in this space and you're kind of working to shift people's perspectives. I've spent a lot of money on coaches and mentors and teachers as well, and that's the only reason I am where I am today.
Yep.
It was a big investment. My first sale, I like to tell people, my first sale was convincing Alyssa to take the money we had saved up for a bathroom renovation and put that into coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Basically the process that got me started down this journey.
Yeah, it's amazing. Once people cross that barrier of seeing the value, I kind of missed my other point I was trying to make, but it also, the thing that people are kind of standoffish about is they don't want someone coming into their business and telling them what to do. But it's not really, Mike kind of, he uses a car, engine as an analogy. I'm not trying to give you a new motor. I'm just trying to fine tune, maybe turbocharge your motor that you already have in place. So there's a huge misconception there why, which makes people have that kind of scarcity mindset or just turned off by it. But really, if you would just like drop your ego and, bite the bullet and invest in this coaching, it just like my analogy, you get to where you want to get with the directions that you're not reading, right? You'd get there a lot faster, and that's the end goal for us. So, well,
and just having someone to bounce ideas off of, someone who's been, Mike hasn't been in all the industries, but he's been in business, right? To use that example. Mm-hmm. And so just to have someone who's not emotionally attached to what's going on in your business is huge. And often a good coach won't give you the answers. They'll try and lead you to figure them out yourself.
Right? 100%. And I understand there's different industries, but at the end of the day, business is kind of business, and that doesn't apply to every single industry. But at the end of the day, like, especially the platforms that we teach, or our foundation rather, that we kind of focus on, can kind of be plugged into a lot of different industries. But and 9 times out of 10, man, with the people that have hired us to work with them, every single time it's like, man, I wish I would have did this a year or two ago. Or once you see the value, it's like clear as day. It's like, wow, why didn't I do this before? So
yeah. And it's not like, oh, what am I going to get out of this? How many hours of training am I going to get out of it? My favorite are the hot seats, when you're put on the spot in a Zoom call or whatever. And you go through what you're facing, what went wrong this week, what went right. I'm sure Mike does something similar.
100%. Yeah.
One of those, like a 5-second like click, could make the difference between you doubling your business next year. It's like, it's the concept of being the dumbest person in the room, surrounding yourself with, the 5 people you hang out around the most often. You're going to become an average of them. It's just putting yourself with people who have reached a level of success that you haven't reached, or that can, help you pinpoint the things that you can't see. Or because I know myself, like I latch onto an idea and I'm an action taker. So I'm going to make a decision, and then it all funnels down to that one thing I'm going to do. And then I no longer look at the peripherals. But having someone there to be like, okay, well, that's great, you're taking action, but maybe you should be kind of taking this into account too, right?
Yep. An outside perspective for sure. So yeah, we kind of broke off on that tangent, but I'm so passionate about this coaching thing. And I mean, I understand I'm in the industry, but there is so much value. And that's why I'm here, because I've been through what I've been through with my asphalt maintenance company. And I feel like there's a story there that I can tell other people to help them, because that's at the end of the day. And, you know, this may sound cliche, but at the end of the day, that's why I'm here. I want to help people prevent what I went through, you know, because it's that, you know, that sucks. Let's just, you know, we'll say how it is. So anyways.
So no, we've been harping on the things you would have done differently. What was a couple things you did well? Like what you look back on and be like, yeah, I think we nailed that.
I mean, I'm really good with people. I'm, you know, I'd call myself a good manager, you know? So I feel like my communication was great with the guys and with the customers. You know, I kind of took my dad's role in that. He built relationships along the way, and that's how he kind of built his business. And I got in front of, you know, all of our big contracts that we had and kind of carried on those relationships and help build more relationships, you know, because like I said earlier in the call, I mean, I love getting in front of people. I love talking to people. So, you know, I'm not afraid to get in front of people and talk to them and ask for their business. Right. So, you know, contract, you know, I was a good contract, you know, relations type person. And then also with the employees as well. I feel like, you know, I communicated with them very well, which is very, you know, again, like I said also, but it's very important. You know, I definitely, I got a big heart, you know, that was probably a
double-edged sword, maybe.
A double-edged sword, maybe, you know, but it came into play, you know, for a benefit when it did, and it also bit me in the ass when it did. So, but I would take having a big heart over, I guess, you know, the other side of that. So people appreciated that side of me, and I feel like, you know, I was a good communicator. I mean, I had an open door policy, just like, you know, most of the entrepreneur bosses out there, I'm sure do too. But, you know, I could sit down and talk to anyone about anything on any given day. You know, I'll drop what I'm doing and to help them out. So I feel like my team felt cared for and so on and so forth.
So that's awesome. And that's huge to be able to have someone to talk to. So we talked just previously about, you know, the process side maybe could have been a bit better for some employees, but, you know, the communication was there, but maybe if you had kind of dug deeper into what they really needed from the workplace, that's where you could have done
Yep.
better.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
Gotcha. Cool. So, I mean, we've covered a little, you know, a range of topics here. And obviously because you're working in the coaching space and the business health space, we spent some time on that, which I love. And I wouldn't bring this up if I didn't follow what Mike's doing and kind of see, and I keep bringing it back to Mike. I know that you're the guest here, so we should be talking more about Nick, but I know that
that's fine.
You're working to funnel people into the WinRate family as well too. So, what would be, you know, something I always like to ask guests, before we hop off is what's something that you would tell someone who's just starting out in business? What is like one or two things that you would say that you think would make all the difference for them as they're started out in business?
Two things that come to my mind are don't cut corners. Make sure everything's legit. You know, I mean, I see that, especially again in this industry, there's a lot of guys that will cut corners, will take a shortcut. You know, maybe, no, they won't find out about that. Just be totally legit when you're starting out, you know, make sure all your bases are covered, maybe talk to some other people in the industry and get some tips and make sure everything's in line. And then, you know, always be educating yourself. You know, that's one thing that, again, that I didn't do. You know, I was in that I made it mentality, and you constantly have to be learning, whether it be from a coach or whether it be from, you know, a podcast or, you know, in your industry, there's so many things out there to educate yourself on, so many different things. So just constantly be educating yourself, because that's what's going to really, you know, differentiate you from your competition, right? Because if you're not doing it, someone else is.
Yeah.
So, those would be the two things that I would suggest someone who's just starting out. So
I love that. And I always feel like there should be a mic drop after those end. And so then I have to figure out some way to rally and wrap up the podcast. No, that's awesome, man. And Nick, I really appreciate you taking the time. You know, I know you've been busy and it's been kind of crazy for you these last few weeks, but I appreciate you rescheduling as well around my schedule.
Likewise.
Just say again where people can find what you guys are doing, and obviously go over and subscribe and review and all those things, the platforms that Nick is going to talk about, and review this podcast as well if you find it useful. But drop where people can find what you're doing, what Mike's doing, your podcast, the Hot Sauce one as well. And I'll drop the links in the comments as well.
Yeah. So I'll start with Mike and us at WinRate. You know, our Instagram handle is at WinRate Consulting. That's kind of the main one. That's the one that Mike manages. And then, my Instagram handle for WinRate is Nik _@ the word @ spelled out _ WinRate _ consulting. I know it's kind of long, but and then Mike's YouTube channel, Mike Claudio on YouTube. You can find him there. Big Stud Sales Podcast on Spotify, on Apple, or not Apple, but the Apple Podcast. And then, our website, winrateconsulting.com is also out there. So those are the platforms that you could find us at. And then the Facebook group also, Construction Selling is the Facebook group, free Facebook group.
Lots of value in there.
Lots of value in there. And also, lots of value from Mike, but also there's a lot of different business owners, like-minded individuals, if you will, that are in there that also apply, knowledge as well to something you might be, struggling with, or, a question you might have. So that's kind of Mike's stuff. My stuff, our podcast, Honest-ish with a side of hot sauce. Again, find that on Spotify, Apple Podcast. And our Instagram too is Honest-ish _ podcast. It's our Instagram handle. So
love that. Yeah. And as Mike says, win fast and win often, guys. Get out there,
win fast and win often. Yeah.
Take some of these nuggets that Nick has shared from his story of what he would do differently. And if you don't know how to change it, go find someone that does. I think you can see the knowledge that he brings. So definitely reach out to him if that makes sense for you. But
yeah, and I'll add one more thing, guys. If anyone has a question about business, about anything, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Mike. We always do free 30-minute phone calls. So if there's something that you're kind of struggling with, or maybe you got some questions about coaching, feel free to reach out to us. So we've been more than happy to get on the phone with you.
That's huge. Yeah, no, and once again, Nick, I really appreciate you taking the time out. It's been awesome
Absolutely.
to get to know you both on here that people have heard, but you were sharing some stuff before too, which I really appreciate. So
thank you.
Yeah, no, this is good. We'll wrap up off here, but guys, reach out, connect with these people, and make it happen.
Win fast and win often.